All right, so buckle up, everyone, because we are diving deep into a story with, with pretty much everything you could ask for. We've got college basketball, we've got big money, and we've got the mob.
That sounds exciting.
Oh, it is. It is. We're talking about the 1978 Boston College point shaving scandal. And to help us break it all down, we're going to be using some great insights from the Against the Odds podcast episode over at Wondery.
Against the Odds, a classic.
Yeah. So get ready to find out what happens when you mix the high-stakes world of college sports with, well, the even higher stakes of organized crime. You know, I always found it fascinating how college sports, especially back then, were this massive money-making machine, but the actual players, the ones putting in all the work, weren't allowed to see a dime of it.
Right. It's like, talk about an uneven playing field. I mean, you're telling me.
It'd be like, I don't know, like working your tail off and not getting a paycheck. So it's really no wonder someone like Henry Hill saw an opportunity.
Yeah, Henry Hill,
Yeah.
fresh out of prison and looking to make a quick buck, right?
Exactly. And word on the street was there was this point shaving scheme brewing, you know, and Hill, well, he wasn't one to miss out on a chance to make some easy money.
He was pretty skeptical at first, though, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah, he was. But the idea of actually controlling a game's outcome, like actually being able to manipulate the score, I think that's where he saw the real potential.
If you can rig it so the score lands just right, you know, to hit the betting spread, well, you're basically printing money at that point.
Okay, wait, hold on. Back up for a second. I've always been curious about this whole point shaving thing. How does that even work? Is it really that hard to spot?
Well, that's the art of it, right? Making it subtle. It's not about, like, completely throwing the game. It's about strategically underperforming.
Yeah.
You know, maybe missing a few free throws here, letting the other team score a little too easily there.
I see, I see. So make it look natural.
Exactly. The key is to keep it under the radar. Make it look like just an off day, nothing more.
So it's like walking this tightrope, right? One wrong move and the whole thing blows up.
Exactly. Yeah. And the higher the stakes, well, the thinner that tightrope gets.
Sure.
So in this case, the scheme really starts to take shape when Hill connects with, what was his name? Tony Perlo.
Brony Perla.
Right, Tony Perlo. A mobster who claims to have some players at Boston College on his hook.
Ah, okay, so this is where things start to get interesting. So tell me about Rick Coon.
Rick Coon. Well, he's a player with a bit of a past. He played minor league baseball, you know, where he was actually getting paid.
Okay.
And now he's back in this amateur world, let's just say, the allure of easy money. Well, it was calling his name.
Oh, I bet.
You hit the nail on the head. For Coon, this wasn't just about the money. It was about regaining what he felt he had lost. You know, he wanted that lifestyle, the one where his talent meant he got paid.
I can understand that.
But he can't do it alone, right?
Right.
He needs other players to help him manipulate the game.
Right, right. So who does he try to bring in? Who is his first target?
Jim Sweeney, the team's point guard and co-captain. Imagine, you're a talented athlete, you're leading your team, and then suddenly someone comes along dangling this shady proposition in front of you. What would you do?
Oh, man. I'd like to think I'd just walk away, but honestly,
Yeah.
who knows? The pressure, the temptation, it's got to be tough to resist. So what did Sweeney do? What was his reaction?
Well, he was hesitant, understandably
Yeah,
so.
right.
But Coon, he was persistent, and he knew exactly which buttons to push. He kept reminding Sweeney about their financial struggles, about how this could solve all their problems.
Man, it's like a classic story, the all-American athlete, tempted by the dark side. So where does the big-time mob muscle come into play?
Well, Hill knows he needs someone with some serious clout to back this whole operation.
Yeah,
And that is where Jimmy Burke enters the picture.
Jimmy Burke.
Jimmy Burke, he's a high-ranking mobster with a network of bookies stretching across the entire country.
Ah, okay. So Burke's like the puppet master, pulling the strings behind the scenes. That makes it a lot harder to detect any suspicious activity, right?
Exactly. And he's not someone you want to mess with. In fact, he insisted on meeting all the players who were involved,
Okay.
which actually threw a wrench in Hill's plans.
Oh, how come?
Because Hill realized that Coon may have overstated his influence just a little bit.
He did.
He promised Burke all these players were on board, but now he actually had to deliver. So he orchestrates this very tense meeting in a hotel room with Coon and a very reluctant Sweeney.
I can only imagine the atmosphere in that
It
room.
was practically suffocating, I bet.
I bet.
Hill, being a seasoned criminal, he uses every trick in the book to pressure Sweeney. He even brings up Sweeney's girlfriend, just to emphasize what could happen if he didn't cooperate.
Oh, wow. That's that's really messed up, using someone's personal life like that. They were playing for keeps, weren't they?
Oh, yeah. It shows you the true nature of organized crime. They prey on your vulnerabilities. They exploit fear. For them, it's all about control, about making sure everyone stays in line.
Right, right. Okay, so the stage is set. We've got the players, we've got the mob, we've got the scheme. What happens when the first game rolls around?
Well, the Eagles are up against Providence, and everyone's on edge. Hill is watching their every move. Coon is desperately trying to manipulate the score, and Sweeney does something completely unexpected.
What does he do? What happens?
He plays his heart out, like it's his best game ever. And the Eagles, they end up winning by a landslide.
Hold on, so the fix is in, but the player they're trying to control wins the game. That's got to be a problem.
You could say that. It's a major setback for Hill. He's now in the hole with Burke, and Burke is not known for his patience.
I bet.
Hill has to figure out a way to salvage this whole operation, and fast.
All right. I'm on the edge of my seat here. So what does he do?
He decides to bring in the big guns, the Eagles' star player, Ernie Cobb.
Ernie Cobb.
But this time, they try a different approach. Rocco Perla, Tony's brother, he steps in, posing as just an interested fan.
Okay, so instead of brute force, they're going for, like, subtle manipulation. What's Rocco's game plan here?
He appeals to Cobb's ambition. His dreams of playing in the NBA, he dangles this promise of financial security, suggests that point shaving is just a smart way to capitalize on his talent.
It's kind of insidious, isn't it?
Or it is.
They're twisting the narrative, making it seem like this is just some savvy business move. But deep down, Cobb has to know this is a dangerous game he's being lured into.
Oh, absolutely. You can only imagine the internal conflict Cobb must be going through. On one hand, he's got this incredible talent, this shot at the big leagues. But on the other, he's being tempted with this shortcut to wealth, a path that could jeopardize everything.
Man, talk about a tough call. So what does he do? What does Cobb decide?
Well, that's a story for another time. But it's clear that his involvement adds a whole new layer of complexity to this already tangled web.
Oh, I can't wait to hear it. This is already way more intense than I
Oh,
expected.
wait, it gets even wilder.
So last we left off, Sweeney had basically vanished into thin air. Coon was in way over his head. The mob was raking in the cash. And Ernie Cobb, well, the star player, was caught right in the middle of everything. What happens next?
Well, Sweeney's disappearance, it sends shockwaves through the entire operation. I mean, Coon is paranoid. Hill is scrambling to keep everything under wraps. And the mob, well, they're starting to get a little nervous.
Yeah, I bet. It's like this whole thing is built on like a house of cards, just waiting to collapse. Was anyone suspicious? Like, did they think something bad had happened to Sweeney? Or did they just think he'd run off?
Oh, there were rumors, for
Mm.
sure. Whispers about, what happens to those who cross the mob. But officially, Sweeney was just a missing person, a college kid who had vanished. No trace.
Man, that's gotta be scary. It really makes you realize the kind of danger these guys were in. So how does it all fall apart? Does someone finally crack under pressure?
Well, the truth always has a way of coming out, especially in a world built on secrets and lies. The FBI, they've been sniffing around for a while, picking up on whispers and rumors about this point-shaving operation.
Yeah.
And then a couple of key mobsters involved in the scheme, Tony Perla and Jimmy Burke. They end up dead.
Whoa, hold on. Dead? Like murdered? What happened?
Let's just say that those involved in organized crime, they don't often enjoy peaceful retirement.
Right.
It was a violent world. Loyalties shifted quickly. Betrayals, often met with brutal consequences. The details are a little murky, but their deaths definitely sent a message. Loose lips sink ships. And in this case, those loose lips, well, they could cost you your life.
Man, it's like straight out of a gangster movie or something. So with Perla and Burke out of the picture, does the FBI finally catch a break?
Well, their deaths create chaos. And chaos, it often leads to mistakes. Informants start talking, looking to cut deals to save their own skin. And the FBI, they start piecing together the puzzle, connecting the dots between the point shaving, the missing player, and, the dead mobsters.
Sounds like the walls are closing in, so when does it all finally come crashing down?
3 years after that Harvard game, 1981, the FBI makes its move. They've got wiretaps, witness testimonies, a mountain of evidence. Rick Coon, Henry Hill, and several others are indicted on charges of conspiracy and sports bribery.
Wow. So after years of operating in the shadows, the scheme finally falls apart. What happens to the players who were involved?
Coon, facing overwhelming evidence, he decides to cooperate. He pleads guilty to the charges and ends up serving a short prison sentence.
I guess in the end, that easy money wasn't worth the price he had to pick. What about Sweeney? Did he ever turn up?
Sweeney, he'd gone into hiding, fearing for his safety after he disappeared from that locker room. But the FBI, they eventually tracked him down. And he agreed to become a key witness for the prosecution.
So the guy who tried to do the right thing ends up helping to bring the whole operation down? That's pretty amazing. But what about Ernie Cobb? He was the star, the one with all that potential. Did he get caught up in all of this?
Cobb's story, it's complicated. While there was evidence that linked him to the scheme, he always maintained his innocence, claimed he never actively participated in any of it. He even sued the FBI for defamation, though his lawsuit ultimately failed.
Wow, so even though he wasn't charged, his reputation was still tarnished. That's a tough thing to live with.
Absolutely. The shadow of the scandal followed him throughout his career. He did end up playing professionally overseas, but his NBA dreams, well, they were pretty much shattered.
Okay, so we left off with Sweeney just disappearing, vanishing, gone. Coon is freaking out. Hill is trying to keep a lid on everything. And the mob, well, they're not exactly known for their patience. What happens next?
Well, as you can imagine, Sweeney's disappearance kind of throws a wrench in the whole operation.
I bet.
Coon's paranoid, Hill's scrambling to keep everything under wraps, and the mob, they're starting to get nervous.
Yeah. I can imagine this whole thing is like ready to implode. Did anyone even think about, foul play? Or did they just assume Sweeney took off?
There were rumors, of course, whispers about what happens to people who cross the mob.
Right.
Officially, though, Sweeney was just a missing person, a college kid who vanished. Poof, gone.
It really puts the whole situation in perspective, like these guys were in real danger.
Oh, yeah.
So how does it all unravel? Does someone talk?
Well, the truth has a way of coming out.
Right.
Especially in a world built on secrets and lies. The FBI, they'd been poking around for a while, picking up on rumors, whispers of a point-shaving operation, and then they were in. Well, a couple of key mobsters involved in the scheme end up dead. Tony Perla and Jimmy Burke.
Whoa, hold on. Dead. Like, murdered.
Let's just say that people involved in organized crime don't always have the smoothest retirements.
Right.
There's a violent world, loyalties shifted constantly, and betrayals were, let's just say they were dealt with harshly. The exact details are still a little fuzzy, but their deaths sent a clear message. Loose lips sink ships. And in this case, those loose lips could cost you your life.
It's like something straight out of a movie. So with Perla and Burke gone, does that give the FBI what they need to correct the case?
Well, their deaths definitely created chaos.
Yeah.
And chaos leads to mistakes. Informants start to talk, looking to cut deals to save themselves. And the FBI, they start to put the pieces together. The point shaving, the missing player, the dead mobsters. It all starts to add up.
Yeah, the walls are closing in. So when does it all finally come crashing down?
3 years after that Harvard game, 1981. The FBI makes their move. They've got wiretaps, witness testimonies, a ton of evidence. And Rick Coon, Henry Hill, and a few others are indicted on charges of conspiracy and sports bribery.
Wow. So after years in the shadows, the scheme is finally exposed. What happens to the players that were involved?
Coon, facing a mountain of evidence, decides to cooperate with the authorities. He pleads guilty to the charges and serves a short prison sentence.
So in the end, all that money wasn't worth it. What about Sweeney? Whatever happened to him?
Sweeney, he went into hiding. He was scared after he disappeared from the locker room. But the FBI eventually found him, and he agreed to testify for the prosecution.
So the guy who tried to do the right thing the whole time ends up being the one to bring the whole thing down. That's incredible. What about Ernie Cobb, the star player, the one with so much potential? Did he get wrapped up in any of this?
Cobb's story is a tricky one. There was evidence that linked him to the scheme, but he always said he was innocent. Claimed he never actually took part in the point shaving. He actually even sued the FBI for defamation, but his lawsuit failed.
Wow, so even though he wasn't charged, his name is still dragged through the mud.
Yeah. The shadow of the scandal, it hung over his career. He did end up playing Pro Bowl overseas, but his NBA dreams, well, they were pretty much over.
Man, this whole thing has been a wild ride. We started with a story about basketball and ended up diving into the world of organized crime, lies, betrayal, and even, death. It's definitely a story that's going to stick with me.
It really makes you think, about the choices we make and the consequences that follow. Coon was driven by greed, while Sweeney, he was guided by his conscience. His decision to disappear. That was a desperate attempt to break free from the mob's grip. And then you've got Cobb, caught in the middle, his dreams slipping away. It's a powerful reminder that even when the pressure's intense, our choices, they matter.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder what other stories are out there, hidden beneath the surface of college sports. Because as long as there's money to be made, there will always be people willing to bend the rules and others who get caught in the crossfire.
The Boston College scandal. It serves as this cautionary tale, a reminder that the desire to win, it should never come at the cost of integrity and fairness.
Well said. This deep dive has been truly eye-opening. We went from basketball to the allure of easy money to the dark side of organized crime and the courage it takes to stand up for what you believe in. It's a lot to take in, but it's a story I won't soon forget.
It reminds us that even when things seem impossible, the right choice, even if it's the hardest one, can lead to redemption.
And to everyone listening out there, if you were ever faced with a similar situation, a tempting offer that seemed too good to be true, what would you do? What price would you be willing to pay? It's a question worth asking ourselves,
Yeah.
because you never know when you might find yourself facing that same test.